So tonight we are in for a great treat where we've got a
Do the
favorite,
regulars.
and of course we do the regulars because we love them every week. So Lee Osler, we love having him, author and science genius, and so we're looking forward to his insight. And of course, we love Dr. Maureen Hayes from Galveston, Texas, and she, of course, will contribute quite a bit with her background and being with the CIA for so long. But Russell Mariani is our special guest. He's been with the CIA longer than any of us, so it'll be exciting to hear all his journey. But I'm going to read a bio that Jim got a little while ago, and then I'll just add to it what I know. So Russell Mariani is the co-founder of the Center for Functional Nutrition in Northampton, Massachusetts. He is a health educator and digestive wellness expert. Jim calls him the gut guy for all our shows. He has been in private practice since 1980. And later, I can't wait for you to share your own journey from the early years on what even brought you to wanting to teach gut health. Russell is a health restoration specialist. Love that title. He has expertise not only in gut health, cellular regeneration, reverse aging, detoxing, and redox signaling. What's neat about your book, The No Way Diet to Effective Healthy Living, Nutrition, all that. I have the book in the other room. Is those 7 aspects, one of them including redox signaling. So if y'all haven't gotten that book, it's an awesome read. And my background, I have a degree in nutrition science. So of course, I love to follow anybody who teaches, whole health, nutritional health, holistic health, and of course, redox signaling. Jim is going to add something.
No, I was just what is it? Do you have the book in front of you right there with you, Russell? I just want to make sure that we get the exact title right. Okay,
well, your little screensaver.
The virtual screen is best.
The
no diet way.
Fake background, Russell?
Yes, it's a fake
library. Great. Kind of looks like Lee's.
So the no diet way.
The no diet way to complete health. Digestive Wellness Edition. If you just Google my name, you'll go right to the website and you'll see the book right there.
And now it's brand new audio, or it's been audio for a while?
It's we've had it on Audible for a couple of years.
Okay, super.
I got to do the recording, so that was a lot of fun. And
awesome.
people can get the ebook for free through the website, the entire book, as an ebook, as a PDF, and then we have the audio version and the paperback version.
Super. Well, we can't wait for tonight's. Jim always likes to ask, where your journey started, how you learned of, or even your background, I guess.
Yeah,
start with that.
I guess I really connect with you because every time I hear your story, because I had a similar event happened to me, but I was and we got a new puppy under my desk and I got to make sure he stays. He already chewed my cable up once, but we had similar backgrounds, Russell, but I didn't go the route you did. You were a lot more proactive. I was busy playing basketball and doing other stuff, but I think that's why I have such a connection. And I think this is one of the most major areas that the majority of people don't talk about. They don't talk about our nutrition line. And that's why I really love your story. And I feel like I should respect you to call you a doctor, even though I know you're not. But yet you probably have more experience than every gut health doctor out there. So you have such a high credential in our eyes. And I know, like with Alan Noble, I know you've helped a lot of people within SIA where they had some gut issues, or their children did, like with Alan. So yeah, if you don't mind, just kind of share your background story, where you came from, and why are you doing this?
Yes, well, thank you, Jim. You'll be it'll be good for you to know that part of the reason I got sick was because my high school basketball coach came to me in the summer of 1972 and said that I was going to be one of the biggest players on the team the following year, and they needed me to gain about 30 pounds of weight, mostly muscle. So they put me on a high-protein diet. So,
I did the exact same thing.
So for the next several months, if I ate any fiber-rich grains or vegetables, It was totally by accident
Yeah.
and not by design. So literally by the winter of 1973, I was having serious problems that ended up at a gastroenterologist, had a colonoscopy, and after the colonoscopy was told that the doctor thought I had colon cancer. They needed to do
That'd
more.
be scary.
It was very scary.
Yeah.
Russell, what about there's like a new, fad with a lot of people doing carnivore.
Right.
Wouldn't that be kind of similar to what you were doing then?
I hope not. Yeah, but it can be. I mean, I talk to people all the time who've gone on a paleo diet or a keto diet, and they're totally gotten rid of grains. Now, processed grains are inflammatory food,
Right.
but cooked whole grains, organic whole grains, are one of the best sources of fiber. So yeah, so I've worked with lots of people who've done these high protein diets, and guess what the number one GI symptom is? Constipation.
Yeah.
Okay, so the healthiest diet is really a traditional diet. If you have a European ancestry, look at the Mediterranean diet. Lots of vegetables, lots of whole grains, and a good amount of meat, chicken, fish. So it's a very well-rounded diet. There's fermented foods and prebiotics and probiotics. So it's very healthy. But that was not the diet I went on back in 1972 and early 73. But because I had been on that diet, and I knew it was really the only thing that I had changed in my diet or lifestyle, when I picked my jaw up off the floor after the doctor said it might be colon cancer, I said, do you think this has anything to do with my diet? And his answer changed my life, because he said, no, absolutely not. There's no connection whatsoever between your diet and inflammatory bowel. And I said, well, what causes this then? He said, we don't know. And he left it at that and left the room. So I had to go back in a couple of weeks. And so when I went home that day, I did the only thing I knew how to do at the time, which was to get answers to questions, was to go to my local public library. There was no internet back in 1973. And even back then, I found several books that were concluding that the lack of fiber in the diet was a contributing factor to colon cancer and inflammatory bowel disease and all those things. So I brought 3 or 4 books with me when I went back to the doctor 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. And I was very proud of myself and very excited that, there was something I could do to change my condition and restore my health. And when I tried to show the doctor, he laughed at me and he told me to sit down, and he said, young man, don't self-diagnose. Your diet has nothing to do with this. And I said, well, what's the treatment? He said, well, you'll probably have to be on medication every day for the rest of your life. But he said, don't worry. If the medication doesn't work, we can do surgery. And I said, what do you mean we can do surgery? He said, well, we'll do surgery and remove your colon. And I'm like, how is that a solution to anything? 6 months ago, 9 months ago, I was totally fine. I was perfectly healthy, but I followed this crazy diet. Anyway, as I said, that day really changed my life, because when I walked out of the doctor's office, I knew 2 things. Number one, I wasn't going back to that doctor's office, and I wasn't going to pursue that path. And I was going to at least go back to my former diet and then study diet and see what changes I could make to improve my condition. And again, I was very lucky, I think. I also started going to seminars. I started talking to people. I started reading a lot. And by eating much healthier food, within a month or two, most of my symptoms were gone. And within a month or two after that, all of my symptoms were gone. So it was a very important lesson. It was a big turning point. That experience really got my attention. And at that time, I was just beginning my university studies. I was an English major during college, but when I got out, I went back to school to study nutrition and health. And then 3 or 4 years after that, in 1980, I started my private practice. And so since that time, I've been trying to help as many people as I can to move back to a more traditional diet, to reverse chronic degenerative conditions, especially all the gut health conditions. And then because I've had an open mind to what's going to impact the body in terms of health and healing and restoring normal function, I've been open to supplements from the very beginning. And 13 years ago, now in 2011, a dear friend of mine who had been suffering terribly for about 10 years from a condition caused by a tick bite. We all know what that condition is. Suddenly got better. I mean, literally within a few months, went from the sickest he had been. And actually, I had seen him in January of 2011, and I didn't think he was going to make it. And then in June of 2011, he called me and he sounded on the phone completely normal. I said, "Oh my gosh, what happened? What did you discover?" And he said, "Redox signaling molecules." And so that was my introduction to this miraculous, wonderful breakthrough technology. And it really is remarkable that we have access to this, and it really can help everybody. I want to, this afternoon, I did some review of a whole bunch of literature and videos and stuff, and I wanted to share an insight right at the very beginning, and that is, how is it possible for people with serious digestive system disorders to get better, and all they've done is add our redox signaling supplement to their life, to their diet. They didn't change their diet. They didn't necessarily get on all kinds of supplements. They literally just started drinking ASEA, 4 ounces a day, 8 ounces a day. And within a month or 2 or 3, they're having this amazing, remarkable, regeneration. And today I realized that the reason that can happen is there's a couple of explanations, 2 or 3 very important explanations. The first explanation is that the bacteria that live in our gut are cells. They're single-celled organisms. And like every other cell, they have a nucleus and they have mitochondria. And so when the healthy bacteria in somebody's gut are not healthy, they're deficient. When those bacteria, when the probiotic organisms are deficient in redox signaling molecules, then they can't produce enough ATP. And if they can't produce enough ATP, they can't do their job. And part of the job of the probiotics in everybody's system is to produce antibiotics, which will kill invader organisms and keep down the population of the bad organisms, the dysbiotic organisms. I'll get more into that in a minute. But this is a major realization that just by drinking ASEA, you will immediately empower the healthy bacteria to become stronger, to become more resilient, to do their job more efficiently. And so that alone can explain why some people improve. The other reason, which is equally interesting, if not exciting, is when we talk about gut health, when we talk about gut problems, we're talking about leaky gut, something called intestinal permeability. And so the gut lining, as Lee knows well, and probably Maureen knows well, is very thin. It's only 1 cell thick. And when a person has weak probiotics and they have toxins produced by these other organisms, these pathological organisms, it creates gaps in the lining of the colon. And those gaps are what we call leaky gut. And so the toxins that would normally stay contained in the digestive system start leaking out, enter the bloodstream. And so not only are problems of the digestive system, but then these toxins leak out and cause all kinds of downstream problems, skin problems, mood problems, cognitive problems, joint problems, energy problems, on and on and on. In fact, I watched a video this afternoon featuring Dr. Mark Hyman, who's one of the top functional medical doctors in the country. And he said 100% of all degenerative conditions caused by leaky gut. It's the first place to start to help people. When you correct that problem, you end up correcting all these other problems. So the point about the leaky gut is that the cells that make up the lining are epithelial cells. They're lining cells. They repair themselves very quickly, literally within a few days. Some of the other cells of our body take 60 to 90 to 120 days, but the lining cells can heal very quickly. So if you picture the lining cells in the gut as inner tubes, all kind of pushed against each other, when those lining cells become weak and dysfunctional, it's like they're becoming deflated. And they've become deflated because the mitochondria in those cells are not producing enough energy. So they become deflated, they become weak. And metaphorically and literally, they become deflated. And when they become deflated, holes and gaps appear between the cells, between these inflated tires. So when that person starts drinking the redox signaling molecules, the body knows to send those molecules to this very important area of the body, and those cells start to get replenished. The mitochondria start producing more ATP, the cell starts inflating back to normal, and the leak is no more. And so not only do the gut problems start to improve, and now, of course, you're feeding the probiotics and they start doing their job, but all those downstream problems start getting less and less and less because you've stopped the leak from all those toxins in the gut. So I've been wondering for years how it was possible for people with gut problems, which most people almost always think immediately, you got to change your diet, you got to change your diet, you got to change your diet. And of course, we do have to change our diet. We do have to eat better food. But it is remarkable and it is amazing that even with serious gut problems, those problems can be improved upon and sometimes completely corrected just by restoring the redox potential of those cells. So,
awesome.
so I feel stronger. More than ever I feel that the first thing that people should do when they're trying to improve their condition is to restore the redox potential in their body.
So I was just going to say that, the back of the bottle does say it works on digestive health. So 2 quick points if you can make. What are these redox signaling molecules for those that are brand new and are just getting introduced to ASEA? And 2, since you were already healthy when you started, and we know that the redox molecules makes everything else healthy work better, how did you see a difference between ASEA and then what it did for you by adding that in your system? So you have a twofold. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. So I'll answer the second part of that first. So at age 56, 13 years ago, I thought I was perfectly healthy. If you had asked me, I would have said, yes, I don't have any major complaints at all. But I had a lot of minor complaints. But those minor complaints, I assumed, was just a natural part of the natural aging process. When I talked to my friends who were my age, they all had these same kind of minor complaints. So when I started the ASEA Redox product, I did not have any expectations whatsoever that it was going to do anything for me. I was looking at it mostly to help my clients. So I was really surprised when a whole bunch of very positive things started happening. And the first thing that happened was I had some discomfort, actually in one of my hips, Maureen. I had some, so I'll just say discomfort. And I'd had it for years. It was difficult getting in and out of the car. It was difficult, moving around. And that discomfort completely cleared up within the first 30 days. That was pretty amazing. And then, just better sleep, better energy. I had a lot of damage on my forehead from the sun over the years, and no lotion or potion I ever put on made any difference whatsoever. And that completely cleared up just by drinking ASEA and spraying ASEA, which we all got these little spray bottles back in the day. And so I had a whole lot of small things happen that made a big difference, and then some major things. In fact, one of the things was I stopped wearing my glasses. I was one of those people who first thing in the morning put on your seeing glasses, and the last thing at night took them off. And now that took about a year or more, but one day I realized my eyes were hurting. I took my glasses off and I could see everything perfectly clear. So that happened. And I had a few other very significant things improve. But what are redox signaling molecules? How is all this possible that a single supplement could make such a difference in so many different conditions? And so, again, if you understand that the fundamental problem in most conditions of chronic dis-ease and chronic dysfunction is inflammation, and inflammation is an imbalance in redox. Okay, so the word redox is a made-up word from molecules that are manufactured in every cell of our body that help the cell to perform all of its activities. It helps the cell to detect problems, it helps the cell to repair problems, and it helps the cell produce energy, it helps the cell produce enzymes, it helps the cell produce antioxidant enzymes. And the most important when you hear the word antioxidant, you think anti-inflammatory. So one of the substances that our own body is capable of producing that has the ability to reduce and eliminate inflammation in the body is this substance called glutathione. But if your body has a deficiency in the redox signaling molecules, if the mitochondria of your cell is not producing enough of these redox signaling molecules, then your body loses the ability to produce glutathione and the other anti-inflammatory things that our body and our cells are capable of producing. Okay, so they're signaling molecules, they're communication molecules, they're messenger molecules, and they are literally involved in every activity that a cell does. And our health depends on healthy cells, and a healthy cell depends on the redox potential of that cell, the balance between the reductants and the oxidants. So let me stop there, and let's let Lee and Maureen fill in any gaps in what I
I want Lee to please add even though we really haven't said too much, but the medical disclaimer. And then Lee, if you don't mind, we always have a lot of new people that are watching the recording. Why is it classified as a dietary supplement? Why do we have to use our code talk? Why isn't it a drug? And things of that nature, if you don't mind, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And it's fun to be on with Russell. He has such a deep knowledge and understanding of, gut health and the redox tie-in there. We don't speak, as you've probably figured out by now, we don't speak specifically of medical diseases or by name, identify the disorders. And so we don't make any claims or diagnose or offer this as treatment for any of those kind of diseases. And that's because this is a supplement. It's regulated in the United States and all other countries with their respective, Federal Drug Administration agencies. It's regulated as a supplement, which mandates that people or companies that produce these types of agents that are classified as supplements, we can't make claims and use it in treatment. This is a cellular health conversation. ASEA is a cellular health company. They're marketing it in a unique way that allows us to talk to and tell people about, what this is about. And we're really glad that it didn't go the route that it was first destined to go to, which would be, a formal drug that would have been under physician control, under prescription use, and it would have been quite expensive and really unavailable to the average normal person. So we're really glad that didn't happen, and that opened this up. We enjoy talking about the science, but quite frankly, we're still catching up with understanding what this is really doing. Russell kind of hinted at some of that as he was talking about tight junctions and inflammation in the gut. One of the major things that we're happy about is the ability to manage the inflammatory pathways better. This is lifestyle. It's through proper use, not too much, not too little of the supplements that we're addressing, plus all others. And everybody has a different, what we call sweet spot, with regards to quantity or how much or the timing of these. And that kind of also reflects on people saying, well, it didn't work on me. And it's like, well, you didn't give it long enough. And we're talking, you need to give this a 90 to 180 day plus, we'll call it a trial, I guess. It's really not on trial, but have an experience with it, because we're talking about sometimes turning the battleship around out on the ocean, and it takes a while for that to happen at the cellular level. So I'm really glad that Russell touched on that with regards to inflammation. And but to answer your question there, Jim, that's and to everybody listening, that's why we speak in code talk. You can figure out the applications of that on your own time, or maybe speaking privately with somebody. But in a public forum like this, we're really careful to remain compliant.
Oh, Jim, you're muted.
I know, I just saw that. Maureen, we keep talking that this stuff works on everything. You're the MD in the group. Russell mentioned his gut health. He mentioned a hip, my back, Lee's back, and all these other things that it seems like it works on everything. When you first heard about this, your husband had a rather serious issue as well. But as an MD, is this really hard for you to believe and to convince other doctors that because it sounds honestly like snake oil, it's too good to be true. There's no way something like this could be real, because every doctor on the planet would be using it, wouldn't they?
Well, when we first got in 11 years ago, it seemed like magic. There wasn't a whole lot of studies done. The studies that were done were mostly on athletes, because the company was trying to stay under the radar as far as because the original company that developed the technology was a medical biotech company. They were trying to get FDA approval as a new drug. They couldn't determine what's called an LD50. It's sort of an archaic thing where 50% of the animals that you give the product to perish. It's how they get the toxicity doses and all. So the more they gave the animals, the better they did. So they ended up losing. They had spent millions of dollars, tens of millions. They had all the safety studies and everything done. But the FDA was like, this is not a drug. At best, it's a supplement. And when that happened, they lost their investors. There's a lot of money in new drugs. There's not a whole lot of money in supplements. And so the mother company that was overseeing it started to sell off assets, kind of like a fire sale. Our founder happened to be one of the board members. He has a background, vice president of strategy for Kraft and General Foods. Brilliant man, had been retired from that after 35 years. Worked with a biotech company, was on the board of another biotech company, retired from that, was asked to sit in on this one and to see if he could find any money, but it was too little too late. But when they were being sold off, he was like, I don't think they know what they have their hands on. And so he put together a group of investors to buy the rights to the technology, then took it to a group of scientists to see if they could figure out what the mode of operation was and see if they could stabilize it. Now, these are fleeting molecules. They are signaling molecules. And the reason why it works everywhere, it's kind of like if you have electrical plugs in your house, it doesn't matter if you plug in your hair dryer or a refrigerator. They both turn on, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's that signaling, just like that electrical circuit. So because this has to do with your cells communicating with each other, when you have less of those molecules, as we found out, Russell was talking about the mitochondria, these molecules are made in the mitochondria of the cells. It's where energy production takes place. If you remember back, nightmares from college and high school chemistry, the old Krebs cycle, with ATP and the electron chain and all that. That's where we're playing, but you have 10% less mitochondria per decade after puberty. So by the time you get to be, say, my age or the age we were 10 years ago, even when we were introduced to this, we were running on fumes, you're lacking in mitochondria, or you have an imbalance of these molecules when you start seeing some of that degeneration that Russell was talking about, and graying of the hair, wrinkling of the skin, all of that. So anyway, when you replenish these molecules, when you, deal with any imbalances or deficits, the cells start to work much better. They have their blueprint. They know what they're supposed to do. They can communicate with the cells next to them. And as we know, they're high energy fleeting cells. They talk to the people next to them. They they flip on and off switches. They cause sort of a cascading, what we call domino effect, that goes through the body, leading to increased resilience to stress and overall wellness. So it affects everything in your body. Now, since we're talking hips, and I just got a new one, I do want to address that because, people are like, well, why did you have to get a new hip if you're on this stuff? It's like miraculous. This is physiology, you guys, and it is anti-inflammatory, but I had years of damage to that hip. I had a long history of bursitis in that hip for whatever reason. It may be some undiagnosed scoliosis, not really sure. But I was told 5 years ago that I needed a hip replacement. I was like, what's plan B? And they're like, there's no plan B. I was like, oh, I think maybe there is. So I was able to keep that hip going for 5 years, and I'm taking it all over the world. And I've walked the steps of the Louvre and everything else. It just got to the point where people were tired of seeing me limp. So I got a new one. And you know what? It's healing really well, and I feel great. And, maybe had I started earlier on Redox, I wouldn't have needed it. Or maybe if I had a better diet, Russell, because I am one of those keto people. I'm thinking, what's a grain? So anyway, yeah, it works on all your cells. So thanks, Jim.
If you don't mind me asking, then I know Ann's got a question, and Dr. Osler, but how did you hear about it? And what due diligence did you, all three of y'all, and what made you look into it, Russell? Was it your friend got significantly better, then you did some due diligence, or did you just instinctively know that this made sense and let's do it? And all three of you, please answer that.
And first clients.
I had never heard of redox signaling molecules before, and I was a little embarrassed because I pride myself on knowing all these type of things, anything to deal with health and healing. But what got my attention was my friend, who was also a practitioner, or had been a practitioner, getting better. And then he had the wherewithal, again, the company was very small back then, 2011. I think there were less than 4,000 people at that time, customers. And so I had the good fortune of talking on the phone several times with Dr. Gary Samuelson, who was the scientist who made it possible for these molecules to be stabilized. And I also talked with Dr. Rob Ward, who was one of the first medical doctors to kind of embrace the ASEA redox technology. And this book existed back then. It was published in 2009, and it's not very long. It's only about 80 pages. Well, I read that book probably 10 times in the first 2 weeks that I got it. And then I went online and started looking at PubMed and discovered even back then that redox signaling molecules were a thing. No one in the literature, no one knew that this company had perfected a process of creating these molecules and then stabilizing them and putting them into supplement form. But it took me about a month from knowing nothing to knowing enough to know that I wanted to put these molecules into my own body. And once that started happening, as many people have experienced, the rest is history. It's been a great ride since then. So
Cool.
that
Dr.
was
Osborne?
my introduction.
Awesome.
Dr. Lee?
Yeah, like Russell, I wasn't looking for this. We were looking for solutions for my wife's health, and her physician suggested to us one day that we give redox signaling molecules a try. Again, we didn't know what that was. I asked him what it was, and he said, just go get some. He wasn't really involved in this at the time. And so I had to search it out on my own. We found a source. We got some. And for my wife, it was like flipping a switch. It was literally within 48 hours, there was a dramatic change for her. And I find that sometimes, happens with people that have extreme health issues or redox deficits, as it were. And so that really caused me to take a deep dive into the science. I'm a past president of the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. And so we'd spent a decade, doing PubMed research in that line of work. And so I just went back to PubMed, and like Russell, I found out that redox signaling was a thing, but there really weren't, at least at the time, there weren't any good source books outside of primary, sources, original primary research that at least scratched my itch. I was really curious, and within about 2 or 3 weeks, we were having our annual scientific session for this academy, and I noticed that ASEA had a booth at my meeting, and I'm like, why didn't I ever know about this? Right? This academy has my fingerprints all over it, and this was news to me. Well, then I discovered that Maureen's name was on the booth. She's one that registered the booth, and so I sent her, I think, a few days ahead of time an email saying, what is this stuff? This just happened, and I'm just like dying to figure out what this is about. And so I found my sponsor. I found Maureen, and she was glad and happy and has done a wonderful job of bringing me into the fold, as it were. But that was my experience. It came through somebody else, and again, my brain cells just were a little bit itchy, and I had to scratch them and dive into the deep research because that's how my brain works. So that was how I became aware of this.
But you got in pretty quick, didn't you?
Well, here's what happened: is once you find a solution like this, you come to the conclusion of, like, we can't not do this. We've literally spent 4 decades looking for solutions all over. I mean, literally all over the Pacific Northwest, at some very highly esteemed medical centers. And so, we were hot on the tail of really anything. We were just looking for solutions. And the fortuitous story of how her physician learned about him is maybe another time for another time to tell that story. It does exist out there on the internet, but anyway, that's how we got into it. So
That's an expensive and time laboring. It's like you've lost years together, just taking so long. And this is like a huge answer to prayer. And here a doctor mentions it. I mean, wouldn't we wish more docs sitting with you would give that as a solution? And here your wife was granted that. So that's quite amazing.
Maureen, what about you? How long did it take you to say, once you heard it, I'm going to do this?
Well, I heard about it a couple of times before I actually did anything. Somebody reached out to me when my mom was sick with a life-threatening illness, and they sent me information. It was salt water, and I call it my period of arrogance and ignorance, because I was like, I am a physician. This sounds ridiculous. Please stop sending me information on this. Like click. I wouldn't look at anything. I just thought that, please, I've got this. And then my mom died. And, a few months after that, it was a really stressful time in my life. I was dealing with my mom with this terrible disease. My husband comes home from Iraq with his own terrible disease. And it was like, as soon as one got done, the other one, it was just incredible. So, my husband had gone through all of his treatments and he was cured, but the treatment left him extremely compromised. He was, an athlete of sorts, a former marathon runner, still running 8-10 miles a day when he was diagnosed. After his treatment, he had to wear oxygen to watch TV. And so, I tell people your life can change in an instant. Here we were kind of, getting older and thinking about what we were going to do in retirement. And this just threw everything for a loop. So anyway, a close friend of mine, Terry Latham, who a lot of you know, he had left a wellness company that he had been with for a number of years and very successful, whose products I used in my pain clinic. And they were energy products, magnets, infrared, things very cutting edge, way ahead of the curve. And, I wasn't using their products anymore. In fact, I wasn't even practicing at that time. And when I heard he left the company, I called him up and I said, I'm just curious, why'd you leave? I know why I left, but why'd you leave? And he said, I don't know what to tell you, Doc. I've come across something that's an incredible breakthrough. And I was like, well, what is it? And when I found it was salt water from Salt Lake City, I was like, oh, not you too. You got to be kidding me. And, my husband and I live on an island surrounded by salt water. So I wasn't very impressed, nor was I very open to it. But he sent me some information, and like Russell, I went to PubMed. There were, when I got in 11 years ago, 6,500 references to it. But what really got me is I was talking to my sister who lives in Charleston, South Carolina. And she's not a scientist, nurse, doctor, or anything like that, but she's a medical editor. And I just happened to be having a conversation with her. And I said, this friend of mine, Terry Latham, I said, he was telling me about this stuff called redox signaling molecules. I was like, I've never even heard of such a thing. She said, well, I have. I was like, no, you have not. She's like, no, I have actually. And I said, how would you have heard of it? And she said, we just got a $10.5 million NIH COBRA grant to study redox signaling in the body for cardiovascular, neurodegenerative, orthopedic, aging, diabetes, you name it. And I was like, are you kidding me? And she said, no, let me send you the press release. And so I was like, wow. So here's Terry Latham, who has a background in computer sales, who knows about redox signaling. And here's my sister, the medical editor. And I, the physician, know nothing about it, right? So it was a little bit of an ego thing that I needed to kind of catch up. And so I ordered it. I wasn't going to tell anybody. And I told Terry, I was like, because I signed up as an associate, I was like, I'm not going to any meetings. I'm not learning any secret handshakes. I just want to see if this helps my husband. I'm not going to tell anybody even that we're using this. But of course, famous last words. My girlfriend, Sally, who's a joiner, as soon as she found out I joined, she joined. And her mom had an amazing response to the products, like with her eyesight, kind of like Russell. And then a girlfriend of mine who was a retired emergency room nurse up in Seattle she was just devastated after having had surgery on her wrist a year before, struggling with it. Nothing was working on it. Her hand was turning colors, swelling up. She couldn't write. It was keeping her up all night. And I said, listen, this doctor to nurse, I don't know what this stuff is. I don't know how it works, but you've tried everything else. You might as well try it. And if it doesn't work, you can get your money back and I don't care. And 2 weeks later, I get a call from Terry saying, hey, Joan's in. I said, Joan, who? He said, your friend in Seattle. I was like, what? What? No, I don't think so. He said, you should call her. And I called her and she's like, oh my gosh, I got it. I drank it. I soaked my hand. We only had the liquid back then. I soaked my hand in it. The swelling went down. The color came back to normal. I slept through the night. My husband says I haven't looked this good in months. And I knew what she was dealing with. And I was like, that is incredible. So between my medical school, where I went to medical school, having an NIH grant to study it, and my girlfriend having a serious something that I dealt with in the pain clinic all the time, and having this response, that really got my attention pretty early on. And then my husband actually, I'm sorry if I keep looking, we're having a horrible lightning showers out there. My husband, in a couple of months, he was able to exercise again, take off the nasal cannula, and I was like, what is this stuff? If we as physicians don't know about it, the people on the street don't know about it. And that's what I decided, that I was going to start educating people about it and let them make up their own mind, whether they want to use it or not. And it's been like the best decision I've ever made. Just love sharing this with people, love my life, love traveling, meeting new people, and impacting people like your friend, Jim, that introduced you to it. You just don't know whose life you're going to change. You may not ever know all the people whose lives you've changed. So
Exactly.
Thank you, guys.
So
Thank you a lot.
yeah, that was awesome. So I had a quick comment, Russell. So you write this book and you include redox signaling in your book. So in your mind, like the rest of us think, it's the missing link, right? Because you need these other things. And I've taught nutrition for years, and I'm sure you've experienced this. Not everybody listens, and there's so many opinions about nutrition, and it can be real complex when you walk into Trader Joe's or Whole Food or wherever you go, and then you got to be bombarded with doing all the right things. So when you add our nutrition, Source replaces pretty much everything people are lacking in the Western diet, because they cannot get all the things that can be benefited from Source daily. And then Biome, I'm sure you hands down think that is an exceptional probiotic. It's got the prebiotics, it's got the slippery elm. Some people see overnight changes. So if you can maybe talk a little bit about, writing in the book, adding redox. I mean, you could have wrote about anything, but you made sure that was one of the 7. And then maybe tip on our nutrition with whatever time we have left. Everybody can contribute to that. So, all right, Russell.
you're muted.
There you go. You already said it once. There you go.
There you go.
I'm sorry about that. So the first book I published was in 2006. It was called Healing Digestive Illness. The subtitle was Root Causes and Solutions. Since 1980, since I've been in practice, the most important thing for me in educating other people about how to regain their health, how to restore their health, is to help them understand that there are things called root causes, and things like breathing oxygen, things like proper hydration, things like getting your micronutrients in balance, which is where our ASEA Via line comes in, and something like gut health, the microbiome, the health of the microbiome, like I was explaining at the top of the program here. If your gut is out of balance, then that really has to be fixed first. So that was 2006. I wasn't introduced to Redox until 2011. And I was reluctant to think of it in terms of its own root cause area. But that's where I am today. So when I did a third edition of my book in 2020, all those years later, I included redox signaling as its own distinct root cause area. And as I said earlier, I now feel that it's the most important root cause area, because when you talk about foundational health, you're talking about cells. The cells of our body are the literal foundation, but those cells cannot be healthy. Those cells cannot perform all their miraculous functions unless and until what we call the redox potential of that cell, and it's a real thing, the redox potential, is normal. And that's what our redox signaling supplement does. It allows those dysfunctional cells to come back to normal by replenishing the redox and by balancing those amazing little molecules. So now it's another thing that's interesting about redox when it comes to nutrition, and I will segue back to that and answer your question. So the reason we eat food, the reason we take nutritional supplements like Omega and Life Max and Source is a superfood supplement. So when people take vitamins and minerals and trace minerals and amino acids, that's why they're taking those things, to get all those micronutrients. And our product Source has a full spectrum of micronutrients. But if your gut microbiome is not working properly, if you don't have proper probiotics in your gut, then you're not going to be absorbing the nutrients from the gut, from the digested food into the liver, and from there to all the other cells of your body. So we have a literal root system in our intestines that extracts the nutrients from our food the very same way that the roots of a plant extract the nutrients from soil. So there is an intimate connection between those two things. And a good probiotic, this is my favorite probiotic, Biome, helps in that tremendously. But so here's the thing: you could hire the best whole food chef in the entire world and eat the perfect diet, take all the best supplements, but if the redox potential of your body is less than normal, you get very little benefit from all those other good things that you're doing. And they are good things. They are all complementary things. Because at the level of the cell, all those good things that you're doing eventually ends up in our blood and lymph. The nutrients, the micronutrients, the antioxidants, the essential fatty acids. But we want them ultimately to get into the cells of our brain, the cells of our liver, the cells of our kidney. And the only way that they get into those cells is through little openings, portals on the cell membrane. And at every single one of those openings, there are redox signaling molecules allowing for those things to get inside the cell. So redox signaling is that important. Redox signaling molecules are that important. And that explains why people who eat a good diet, take all kinds of supplements, they're not getting the benefit, because the redox signaling molecules in their body is so dysfunctional or so deficient that the cells of their body aren't able to absorb all those nutrients, all those good foods. So it's really a very synergistic and symbiotic relationship between the redox signaling molecules and the VIA nutritionals. And that's why we say that ASEA really is a complete cellular health company.
Exactly.
Russell, when you have someone that you talk to, you do a lot of coaching still, counseling. Where do you start people on their journey with the quantity of redox? And then also, do you kind of go through more water is going to make the rebalancing back to normal, what some people call, the detox? Do you kind of go into that, and then do you stair step people up into taking more redox quicker?
Yes, the short answer is yes. And it took me a long time to get the lesson about increasing people's ASEA intake. I've always started everybody at 4 ounces a day. I still start everybody at 4 ounces a day, but I'm telling people from day one that when it comes to redox, it is all about your current level of deficiency. And we don't have a machine, we don't have a technology that we can plug people into and say, oh, this person needs 8 ounces of ASEA for 14 weeks, and then everything's going to be back to normal. We just don't have that. So people will know when their redox potential has been restored, because all kinds of amazing, wonderful benefits starts to happen. So start with 4 ounces a day. After a week or two, and again, depending on the person's condition, go to 8 ounces a day. And in the most extreme challenges, people need to be encouraged to go to 16 ounces a day. I actually had an experience this past fall, and I'm thinking about this because I talked to this woman today. Less than a year ago in July, she was so ill that her doctors didn't think she was going to make it, and they didn't know what was wrong with her. And so that's when I met her, and we got her started on a bunch of things: better hydration, better diet, better supplements. But without a doubt, redox signaling was right there in the very beginning. And the first month or two, she kind of had very slow progress. But in the third month, something dramatically changed, something dramatically improved. And I kept asking her, I kept going through my little inventory. What are you doing in this area? What are you doing? How much ASEA are you drinking every day? And she kept telling me 8 ounces, 8 ounces. And yet she was having this remarkable, truly remarkable improvement. And 2 months later, she called me up and she said, I want to tell you something. And I said, what's that? She said, I lied to you. And I said, what do you mean you lied to me? She said, well, remember you kept asking me how much ASEA I was drinking, and I kept telling you 8 ounces. And I said, yes. She said, well, I was drinking 32 ounces a day.
Oh,
And I said, wow, I don't know anyone who's ever done that. I said, why did you do that? She said, well, remember, you had encouraged me to double it to 8 ounces a day. And if I wasn't feeling as good as I wanted to feel, I should go to 12 ounces a day, possibly even 16 ounces a day. So make a long story short, she said every time she increased it, she felt so much better that she kept increasing it until she literally got to 1 bottle a day, 32 ounces a day. And she did that for 60 days in a row. And at the end of those 60 days, she had another report with her medical doctors because she was looking at a abnormal cell thing. And at that point, the doctor said, I don't know what you did, but everything is fine. Everything is back to normal.
Praise God.
That's awesome.
I've got an important area I want to cover, but we've got 2 minutes. And Maureen, I'm not sure if you or Lee can pop in on that, so we can go a little bit long, I guess. But when it comes to nutrition and people are battling a serious health issue, and even though they may be on what they think is a good nutritional intake, not supplementation, but do you see the reason to add certain things, Maureen, from our nutritional line if they're battling the bad cell stuff or whatever it might be? Do you see any of our certain nutritions, and can they take more of those while their body is trying to recover?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. All of our nutritional products are whole foods. So you're taking food. You can actually open up the capsules if you want, add them to a smoothie or to applesauce or whatnot. But let's face it, our diets, even if we're trying to eat a really healthy diet like Russell is talking about, or like Dr. Lee talks about in his healthy lifestyle, Redox lifestyle book, we're not getting the nutrition we need from the foods that we're eating. They're a little bit depleted, the soil's depleted. So I like for people to add to it. And of course, my favorite is Life Max. I love the source. And I was thinking about that green drink, you guys, the AG1, I think it's called, that you see everywhere. I saw full transparency. I saw a commercial for this green drink. It was from a different company. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds awesome. And I ordered it and I got 6 cartons of it, and I thought, I wonder how this compares to Source. Y'all, I had the same exact ingredients in it. I think the only thing our Source was missing was ashwagandha, which we now have in Mood, right? I was like, oh my gosh, before I get lulled into any of this stuff, I need to check our own stuff. So Source is fantastic. All those superfoods in there, so good. The Life Max is for longevity and vitality, and it's got some like traditional Chinese medicine type of ingredients in it, things that you may be familiar with, like broccoli seed extract, green tea extract, turmeric. But it also has some pretty exotic things. It's got 5 different forms of medicinal mushrooms in there. It's got French cantaloupe, which is full of SOD. It's got I love the way God, I'm blanking on his name, was saying the things last week. Go to cola. I'm not saying it correctly, I'm sure. Astragalus. These things have impact. Every ingredient in there deals with either cell division or things that plague us as we age, and energy level. That's why so many of our athletes love it. So I love anybody who has a bad diagnosis, I have them get on that product because it just really takes it to the max.
The 2 of them, or
At least 3 a day.
It's 3. Yeah.
no, I don't mean the quantity. I mean the Life Max or Source or both.
Well, Life Max, I like it for some of the properties that it has for people who, if they have bad
Okay.
Right. Broke cells.
Okay.
But when somebody is like for me in a healing mode, one of the things that, definitely if you're on any kind of pain medicine or anything, you want to make sure you're on a probiotic.
Yeah.
But all of our products are so good. The omegas, that's one of my favorite ones. It's got omega-3, 5, and 7. It's got very fresh fish, omega-3 from fish that's processed very quickly, so it's not rancid. It doesn't have a fishy taste to it, but it also has pomegranate oil in it and sea buckthorn. So it's for your brain, it's for your heart, it's for your joints, it's for your skin and hair. And then it has astaxanthin in it, which is a really potent antioxidant that's just sort of thrown in there. That's a really expensive supplement, and it's in our omega product. And then the biome, Russell talked about that. That's incredible. So we have 4 besides our cell performance products, and they just, they're just sort of a complete nutritional program. Now, everybody, and Russell can speak to this better than I am, sure, but everybody needs some individual things that, they might want to supplement on top of this, like, maybe vitamin D or extra vitamin C or something like that. But just for the general masses, these are amazing products, really high quality.
Thank you, Lee.
Yep.
I would take this back to the top of the show where, Russell took us down the path of GI health. When we have appropriate redox signaling happening in the body, we're going to have less inflammatory issues. And the reason why is because it's actually doing 2 things. One, a kind of an indirect action through the upregulation of what we call NRF2. We're creating antioxidants which help restore the redox balance and reduce the oxidation, which otherwise would be increasing the inflammation. And 2, because redox signaling molecules competitively inhibit the activation of the NF-κB redox switches that start inflammation. And so balancing this out through the body, but also locally in the gut, decreases these inflammatory issues. It resolves the leaky gut. So we're reducing the leakage of large macromolecules through the intestinal wall that upregulates inflammation just on its own. But we are making all of the nutritional products that we were just talking about, from normal food or supplements, more bioavailable. And so they're not just washing through the colon and into the sewer. We're actually absorbing them and utilizing them as we should. When we speak of redox signaling molecules, this is not nutrition. These are just bioenergetic molecules that activate pathway genes that turn on cell defenses. This is what activates DNA repair. This is what activates mitochondrial biogenesis. This is what activates autophagy, which is eating up the damaged proteins and the folded proteins. This is what activates sirtuins. The whole redox landscape is benefited when we restore redox signaling. And that makes this nutrition side then, which we, again, need to pay attention to separately through supplementation, but especially lifestyle, it makes it much more applicable because it balances out the body. So it's a home run on all things, and that's why I really love this company, ASEA Global, which is a cellular health company. That's what it is. That's why we're all engaged in this, and that's why we see the remarkable results that we have. Russell, I love your story of a bottle a day. You know, I've heard stories about people, for example, in Taiwan who have a different cultural approach to this, and they start everybody on a full bottle a day. You know, because they want people to feel the impact, and we're over here taking 4 ounces or 2 ounces twice a day, and people are wondering, well, when's it going to happen, right? Well, I mean, there's some cultural stuff in there between the two countries, I guess, but the principle is you take enough long enough, and your cells are going to get healthy. So that's my takeaway.
Okay, wrap it up, Russell. There's people out there that may have never heard of this before. They're going, okay, this sounds good, but you know what? I'm too old. I've just got too much bad stuff. I got too much baggage. I can't do it. Would you please tell them that this gives anybody and everybody, what everybody's looking for is health, hope? Could you please, in a couple of minutes, talk to them why they need to be getting on this program now?
So I think the easiest way to answer that question, and thank you for asking that question. 13 years ago, when I was first introduced to this amazing molecule supplement, my dad had just turned 88 years old. And for the first time in his life, he was losing energy. He was kind of clearly aging. And so I introduced the Redox molecules to him. And he started taking it just as I was taking it. And about 3 months later, he called to say, thank you very much. I feel like I have my energy back. And I just want everyone to know that my dad has been drinking ASEA every day since 2011. And last September, we celebrated his 100th birthday by playing golf together.
That's great.
So healthy longevity is possible when your cells function normally, and redox signaling molecules are the most important thing that we need to help those cells function normally.
So it's never too late.
It's never too late.
Okay, guys.
As that great American yogi, Yogi Berra, once said, it ain't over till it's over.
That's great.
I just, I want to thank you, Russell. Thank you for taking your time. Dr. Maureen and Dr. Lee, same. It's hard to describe what we have. I thought it was snake oil. I thought it sounded really rather ridiculous until I got my life back. My best friend shared his story in a very, very condensed version last night. And when you've got an 18-year-old son that was told he's going to die, and this stuff gave him his life back. And we've had that. We've got multiple people, by the way, Russell, drinking a bottle a day. And I just keep asking, what if? And the only way anybody else is going to hear about this is if we share, because we're not doing any other kind of advertising. Please do not go to Amazon. Please get back to the one that got you on this. If you're going to do proper research, go to redoxmatters.com. Go to discoverredox.com. Do your proper research, but don't go to Google and do it there. What we have is a divine gift. It is a divine gift. No one else has this because he allowed it. Next week, we've got Nancy Walker. We're going to be talking about a section that we haven't spent much time on, but I'll guarantee it, everybody out there cares about it because you all want to look younger. And so she is phenomenal. She was a past hygienist. Her husband is Dr. Dick Walker. But it will be Nancy Walker that will be with us next week, sharing what she knows about an amazing other product line, because we all want to look younger. And so with that, Russell, thank you from the depth of my heart. We want you back. we can't wait to have you on when you're 100. And
I'll be here.
Lee, thank you. Your expertise, your writings, your books are phenomenal, Maureen. Real quick, give us the ripple effect story. Why should people share this, Maureen? Please. I like you closing out with that.
Okay, absolutely. But I do have to make a comment. You know, normally when we have Russell on, we have a long discussion about water. And somebody was just saying, why is nobody talking about the importance of water? And I was like, yes, it's so unusual when we have you on here. So,
Too many other topics.
My bad. I always talk about hydration. It's the most important thing that we can do to help the molecules work, is to be better hydrated.
And it's in your book.
Yeah, let me just say that it is in his book, but if you go back at redoxmatters.com and look in the archives, all of those past episodes where we dove into the deep end of the swimming pool of water are all there.
Yeah.
That's
so
super.
Lynn, go
Great.
check it out. So anyway, we talk about sharing this. You know, you don't have to be a doctor, a dentist, a nutritionist, a gut specialist. You just have to care about other people. And just like Jim was saying, if you don't open your mouth, people will suffer. They might not know about it. So when we share this as a gift, it's like being, you know, throwing a little pebble into a pond, and that ripple effect takes place and it spreads. So you telling one person who tells another person who tells another person, this can spread all over the world. It has for those of us who have felt like it was important enough to share. So go be a pebble and go cause a ripple. So thanks.
Because the only way they're going to hear about it is from us.
Yep.
And like my best friend didn't really share last night, but they shared with a couple of people, us being one of their first. And then they're busy in their life. She's a youth pastor and he's a banker. And he goes, I really can't do that. But he didn't understand the impact of what our Pebble did. And we've got thousands of people now using this technology all over the world, and they had no idea.
No.
They had no idea because their son almost died. They researched it, they looked into it, and they shared it with us. And then we took it and ran. You never know who's going to take it and run.
Yep.
So join, hit in, take it, and share it. And so with that, thank you. We love doing this. I'm sorry. Maureen, actually, we all had talked about maybe going shorter. We're going longer, Maureen. I don't know what we're going to do about this.
Yeah, I know. And I've been sitting on this hip for a little too long. So
Yeah, oh, guys, I gotta go scrub me out. He was driving me nuts under my desk. Well, thank you guys. Love you. This recording will be up very shortly.
Love you guys.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Russell, thank you
you.
so much. Love it.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.